Okay. And as usual, we're all gathered here again today to listen to another exposition of the pristine Dhamma, the most sublime teaching the world has ever seen, and that is the Buddha's Dhamma, the path to liberation, the path to salvation for all sentient beings. Before we begin today then, let us all take a moment to reflect on how fortunate we are to be in receipt of the teaching. Let us take a moment to recognize how fortunate we are to be taking refuge in the Noble Triple Gem, to be able to adhere to the precepts, to train ourselves, to discipline ourselves on the path to our liberation, to invite those who are among the other fortunate ones to come along and listen to this sermon, to join us, so that they may witness this meritorious deed and acquire merits. Let us also take a moment to seek the forgiveness of the noble ones and make a firm resolve to understand and comprehend the teaching before we begin today's proceedings. So, to start us off, I can ask you all to be upstanding, to take refuge in the Noble Triple Gem and observe the precepts before we begin today's sermon. Please repeat all together and after me. Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Saṅghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dutiyampi buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dutiyampi dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dutiyampi saṅghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi saṅghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Saranāgamaṇaṃ sampunnaṃ, Pānātipātā vēramaṇī sikkāpadaṃ samādhiyāmi, Adinādāna vēramaṇī sikkāpadaṃ samādhiyāmi, Kāmesu miccāchārā vēramaṇī sikkāpadaṃ samādhiyāmi, Musāvādā vēramaṇī sikkāpadaṃ samādhiyāmi, Suramēraya majjapamādatthānā vēramaṇī sikkāpadaṃ samādhiyāmi, Tisaraṇena saddhiṃ pañcasīlaṃ dhammaṃ sādhukaṃ surakkitaṃ kattvā appamādena sampādeta. Okay. Let us also take a moment to pledge our allegiance to the Great Master, the Perfect One, the perfectly noble One, the Supremely Enlightened One, the Magnificent One, the unparalleled one, the unequaled one, by reciting the Vigata Mohasa stanzas. And as we recite these verses, let us remind ourselves that this is a pledge of allegiance, and it comes with a solemn vow, a promise that we make to ourselves on behalf of our teachers, to abstain from all wrongdoing, to engage in that which purifies our mind, to cleanse our mind and discipline ourselves, and to complete the Sambuddha Shasana. So please repeat all together and with me. Dhirassa vigata mohassa pabhinna khilassa vijita vijayassa anighassa susama chittassa buddha silassa sadhupanyassa vessantarassa vimalassa bhagavato tassa savako hamasmi akatankatissa tusitassa vantalokamissassa muditassa katasamanassa manujassa antima sarirassa narassa anopamassa virajassa bhagavato tassa savako hamasmi asansayassa kulassa venaikassa sarati varassa anuttarassa ruchira dhammassa nikhankassa pabhasakarassa manachidassa virassa bhagavato tassa savako hamasmi asansayassa kulassa venaikassa sarati varassa anuttarassa ruchira dhammassa nikhankassa pabhasakarassa manachidassa virassa bhagavato tassa savako hamasmi namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Okay, you may all now be seated. Also, before we commence today's sermon, let us invite those sentient beings, wherever they may be, the 10,000 world systems out there, all those beings who may even have just a modicum of fortune, to have been born in an era in which the Buddha's Dhamma prevails, to have been born in an era in which his disciples, the mahasanga, prevails. The only path to their liberation, to their salvation, prevails. So let us offer to them this opportunity to join us. Let us take a moment to remind ourselves that among them will be those who in this infinitely long journey in samsara will have supported, assisted and been merciful to us, who have always been there by our side through the difficult times of our life. This is the perfect opportunity to repay the debts that we owe them by offering them the gift which excels all gifts. So let us now invite them to join us to witness this meritorious deed. And if among them are those who have been born in woeful plains, may they listen to this preaching as well as witness this meritorious deed and acquire the merits, and may such merits help them to free themselves from the woeful plains and be born in the blissful plane. And for all beings in the blissful plane, may they be able to listen to this teaching, understand and comprehend it, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. So as I now make this invitation, I want you to extend that invitation out in your hearts and in your minds, not just as a mark of gratitude or duty, but with gratefulness towards all of them, as well as compassion towards all suffering sentient beings. Samanta Chakravalesu Atra Gacchantu Devata Saddhammang Munirajassa Sunantu Sagga Mokkadam Dhammas Savana Kalo Ayang Bhadanta Dhammas Savana Kalo Ayang Bhadanta Dhammas Savana Kalo Ayang Bhadanta. And before we commence today's sermon, let us also take a moment to seek forgiveness for all our wrongdoings, our misdoings, be that through speech, word, or action, towards the Noble Triple Gem, towards the Samma Sambuddhas, Pacceka Buddhas, Arahata Buddhas, Anagami, Sakudagami, Sotapannas, be they on the path of having attained the fruits, as well as the Sambuddhashasana. For the consequences of our actions may be that although we make effort to understand this teaching, we find that it is incredibly difficult to do so. Various obstacles come our way. So, before we commence today's sermon then, let us take a moment to seek forgiveness from the Noble Triple Gem, the Aryans, the Sambuddhashasana, for any thoughts, words or actions of revile, desecration or slander, insult or offense that we may have directed towards them in this long journey in samsara. And let us all make a final resolve. May through the course of this sermon, those among us who have not yet achieved the noble state of Sotapanna, may we be able to do so by understanding the Four Noble Truths, and may through comprehension of these truths we all be able to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. With that firm resolve in mind, I invite you all to prepare yourselves to listen to this sermon. Excuse me. Okay. In last week's sermon/meditation program, we took a moment to really get a glimpse. We took some time even to get a glimpse of how deep and profound the words uttered by a Buddha, the words uttered by his disciples can be. By using a very familiar or relating a very familiar story of how the ascetic or householder turned ascetic Upatissa came across the great elder Asaji, the conversation that happened between them, and how the essence of the Dhamma was firmly or became firmly rooted in the mind of Upatissa. At the end of the utterance of 2 lines of the Dhamma, gives us an understanding, an idea about this. This is why, in fact, one of the things I reminded you, prompted you even, to think about and consider when we observe situations like this, is it must get us to think that if for some reason we have not yet been able to understand the teaching of the Buddha, if we don't yet feel that we have embarked on a journey which leads us to our liberation, then it is about time that we realized that perhaps the missing link, the missing piece of this puzzle is with me. The human mind is such that whenever there is a problem, whenever there is unsatisfaction, unfulfillment, it is inclined to find the flaw, the fault on the outside. With this inclination, to find a flaw on the outside, people live their lives never being fulfilled, never being satisfied. Because after all, they're not looking for answers in the right place. And you know that this does not apply only in the Dhamma, or this applies not only in the Dhamma, but also in other aspects of life, equally. I suppose it is not unusual, it is not a surprise that people feel that the reason that they are yet to embark on the path towards their Nibbana, to attain the noble states, to purify and cleanse their mind, it is no surprise that people feel this is because there is some shortcoming in the teaching, that they have not heard enough. There is more to hear. There is more to listen to. It is therefore not a surprise to see that people think the issue is with the teacher, with the instruction. I have not been taught well. I have not had enough lessons. I have not been instructed correctly, are some of the things that you will find people saying a lot of the time. I'd even go as far as saying 99% of people, certainly more than 90%, will always look for the problem on the outside, even when it comes to their salvation, their liberation. So even when it comes to the Dhamma, it is a lot easier to attribute one's shortcomings to the teaching or to the teacher. Because once you've done that, now you are guilt-free. Because now what has to change is outside your remit. So now you're comfortable. I have seen a lot of people like that. I see a lot of people like that today, to this day, and I will continue to see people like that. Across the scale of time, there will always be people like that. Reason I'm saying this is, I want you to take a moment to think from time to time, if you find yourself in this situation. I have often heard people complain about sermons, about the monks who preach the sermons. Sometimes it's clergy, sometimes lay. They both preach what you have understood, of course, for the benefit of mankind and all sentient beings. It is indeed worthwhile to preach. But I have often seen people who at the drop of a hat will point their finger outwards at the teacher, at the teaching. And they'll say, reason we were unable to understand this, or reason we are unable to understand this, is because the monks are not doing their duty correctly. If the monks only did their job right, we would have been able to do our bit. The teaching of the Buddha, it does not prevail today. With the sands of time, it has eroded, and today we are left with nothing. Nothing but the bare bones. You will I'm sure have heard people say such things. They'll say that the reason that we are going through all this suffering is because there's a problem with the Dhamma. There's a problem with the teachers who teach the Dhamma. They'll be so eager to find faults with those who preach. Sometimes they'll say, the monks who preach this, they're not virtuous enough. You'll find them saying, they preach, but they don't practice. So how can what they be preaching be right? So how can I trust them? These are all excuses for not willing to get your act together. These are excuses that people so freely express and put out. There is a real danger with doing this. I want you to consider these sentiments for a moment. If you are not someone who puts their full effort, their 100% into something, and instead will try to find reasons for your shortcomings in the system, in the teachers, in the teaching, in the way that, in the methods, there's a real danger in doing that. The danger here is, if the real fault is with you, and your accusations are being targeted towards the outside, remember, you receive what you give. This is the way the world works. That's the principle. You shall get what you give. So if you find yourself in that sort of mentality, the real danger here is, on each occasion you point the finger outwards, when the problem is really and truly with oneself. As a result of this action, it becomes, every time you say this, every time you think this, every time you argue your case this way, it becomes that much more difficult to understand it, to get it, to receive it. Because when something has been brought to you, when something has been presented to you, and to be completely honest and fair, something that is flawless, like the Buddha's Dhamma, to be finding fault with it, to be finding faults with your teachers or the instruction. So now your accusations are being directed at something that is flawless. If you are not careful, this can fall into the category of Aripavada, particularly towards the Dhamma, the Sangha, and even the Buddha. I want you to think about this not just in terms of the Dhamma, but also in other aspects of your life, but I'm focusing on the Dhamma for the time being. There's a real danger I'm trying to show you here of being someone who will be so eager, or who is so eager to find faults with the teaching or the teacher or the instruction or with the methods or the system, when wholeheartedly they know that they have not made their full attempt. They have not invested their full effort in achieving the results. And what I'm trying to do here is to show you why you should not be someone who does that. If you believe that you want to achieve something, reach your potential, understand that which is being taught, if you really and honestly and genuinely believe that, and you really want to do it, the last thing you should be doing is pointing your finger at it, throwing your accusations at it or the teacher, and particularly making these false accusations that the reason I'm not understanding it is because of the teaching, it's not right, it's got holes, or with the teacher, he's not right, she's not right, and so on. He's not virtuous, he's not deserving of the preaching, and so on and so forth. These are all false accusations. And when we do this falls, as I said, into the category of offense, revile, desecration towards that which is noble. And the more times you do it, the more times it becomes difficult to understand it, to comprehend it, and to seek refuge from your teacher, to seek their help. All this happens in the unseen. That is why people don't think twice before they spurt their excuses. I want you to be careful. And think 100 times over. Before you say that the reason I have not yet understood this, the reason I have not yet begun to change my life, the reason that I'm not yet embarked on the journey is because of the Dhamma, it's because of the monks, it's because of the nuns. They're not doing their job right, they're not virtuous, they're all living a life which was not condoned by the Buddha, and so on and so forth. To be completely fair, on no occasion did the Buddha instruct or advise, particularly those among those who live lay lives, to either scrutinize or inspect the lives of his disciples to check whether they are following of the discipline that was expounded by him. What he did say was, listen to what they preach, take their instruction and follow it. If that which is being taught enables you to extinguish the fires of raga, dvesha and moha, then follow that instruction and achieve your liberation. He did, however, instruct the community of the Sangha to always keep the other members of the Sangha, your fellow members of the Sangha, in good order, and to help them to cleanse themselves of any wrongdoings, and to help them to be put back on the right path in the event that mistakes happen. That was a duty, a responsibility that he placed on the mahasanga. But more times than not, we get to hear of people who will so easily and so openly and so blatantly scrutinize the lives of monks and nuns, And what they'll do is, not just that, but following on from that, they will use that as an excuse for not following the path themselves. What they'll say is, if the people who preach this Dhamma lead an unvirtuous life like that, what's the problem with us living a life like this? Living lay lives like we do. I'm trying to show you here that that line of thinking is completely wrong. And by doing that, what people do is they make their journey, their path, that much more difficult. They're bringing in obstacles to their path. They're adding obstacles to their path, rather than trying to do whatever is possible to remove those obstacles. So I want you guys, I want all of you to think about this. Of course, in any part of society, you will find people who are virtuous and who are unvirtuous. That is both in lay life and in the life of clergy. Not everyone's an arahant. But what we must understand, folks, is the Buddha didn't instruct us, particularly as lay people, to study the lives of monks and nuns and learn the Vinaya from them. You must get this clearly into your heads, that what the Buddha's instruction was to learn the Dhamma from them. I'm not sure why I felt that this was something that needed to be said, but the moment we opened the tap, this is what started flowing. Must be a reason. Today's media is a great outlet for people to expose that which has to be kept unexposed. Just because something is there doesn't mean that has to be put outside. Not everything that exists need to be shown to everyone. Everyone has a responsibility. As they say, with great power comes great responsibility. Everyone has a responsibility, those in authority, those in power, those in the media, everyone, teachers, parents, everyone, every man, woman and child in society have a responsibility. They have a responsibility towards oneself and they have a responsibility towards others. The responsibility to think how what I'm about to share with the rest of the world may impact others who may be trying to make great efforts to get something of value, something worthwhile out of their lives. It does not help someone to witness the wrongdoings of that which they hold and believe to be pure, that which they hold and believe to be sacred. It does not help for them to see that as those that can no longer be trusted. I'm not saying that those who are guilty should not be dealt with in the appropriate manner. But what I'm saying is, if that responsibility is not with you individually and personally, then I'm saying just let it go. You will see a lot of this in the future, in the coming days, months, years. People will be taking others to the laundry and washing their dirty linen in public. I want you to understand that if you are someone who is serious about your Nibbana, to have a mind at peace is very important. To have a mind which sees the virtue and the good qualities of others is very important towards achieving that goal. To taint your mind with the unvirtuous acts and deeds of others, to fester your mind with the pus that oozes from the wounds of others, is really a waste of time and a waste of your life. Don't fall victim to that. For some reason I feel that this is important advice at this particular juncture. I don't know why. There must be some, one, two, a few among you who may need this, and perhaps that is why I feel that this is an important piece of advice to share with all of you. There are some things which has to be made public, there are some things which have to be kept hidden, all for the benefit of the public. And by hidden I don't mean, as I said again, that wrongdoings should be turned a blind eye. They have to be dealt with appropriately, by all means. But let those whose duty it is to deal with them, deal with them. They are doing that on behalf of society. That is their duty. They do that on behalf of society. Like, for example, an executioner. He does his job on behalf of society. Does he earn merits in doing that? Difficult question to answer. Does he earn unmerits in doing that? An executioner? Of course. After all, he's taking human life. No matter the circumstances, unmerits or demerits rather are earned, no end. But he does that. He does his duty on behalf of society. Are merits earned there? Perhaps. Perhaps. What I'm suggesting to you is, let the executioner do the job of the executioner. Don't you get involved, unless you want to be the executioner. In which case, you're in the wrong place for that. You're in the wrong job for that. You got to be there. At the gallows. That's where you need to be. Not at home, on your sofa, sat in front of the TV, watching the news and making comments or passing remarks about that and sharing that out with others. Don't fall into that trap, folks. I'm really saying that and sharing this with you with compassion towards all of you, because you need to keep your mind free and clear and clean from all those taints of hatred and vile and malice towards others. You got to be someone who is always able to see the good in others, someone who can see the silver lining in every dark cloud. You got to be someone like that. You got to have a positive mindset. To reflect on anicca, dukkha and anatta. You need to be a pleasant person. Your mind must be at peace. It must be happy. Only a happy mind can reflect on anicca, dukkha, anatta. A distressed mind, a frustrated mind, an annoyed mind, that sort of mentality is not is not good. It is very difficult to reflect on the Dhamma when you have these negative emotions. So always try to keep your mind free and clear of such taints. These can even go as far as nivarnas, which can block your path to Nibbana. So whether that is a lay person or clergy, particularly in when it comes to clergy, because if you understand that the only refuge we have now is the Noble Triple Gem, and in there is the mahasanga, I would even suggest that whenever you see any news of the mahasanga, or perhaps a monk or a nun, and that news is not in a positive light about them, so it's not praising them for having done something good. It is a criticism of perhaps their actions, be that something that they have genuinely done, or be that simply an accusation. I'd say turn away. Switch off the television. Don't get involved in that. If you really want to find out what's going on in the outside world, there's plenty more things you can find out. Because the mahasanga is a gift to all humankind, to all of humanity. It's a gift. It's the gift of the Buddha. Just as much as the Dhamma is his gift to mankind. The Buddha established the order of the mahasanga as a gift to mankind, both to enter the mahasanga and become one of them, and for those who are unable to do so, to take an example from them, to take lessons from them, to take instruction and teaching from them. We must not make it our duty to find faults with them, to find out what's wrong with them, to find out their weaknesses, to find out their flaws. Please do understand that the mahasanga is the product of the Buddha. He established that order. He didn't do so and then ask us, okay, now all of you go and find what's wrong with them. Now all of you go and find out where they're virtuous and where they're not being virtuous. He designed the order, he established the order and designed it in such a way that it is self-cleansing. There are methods and practices within the order to cleanse the mahasanga in itself, or for the monks to clean themselves, such as by making confessions with an elder monk, and so on and so forth, such as by renewing their precepts, and various practices and methods and rituals that have been inbuilt towards that process and that purpose. One might ask, well, then Swamin Hansa, what about Vishaka? Was she not the foremost female patron of the Sambuddha Shasana? And did she not, on multiple occasions, take various complaints to the Buddha about the members of the mahasanga who did not conduct themselves in an exemplary manner? Indeed she did. Yes, of course she did. You must understand though, Vishaka did this after she became a Sotapanna. Having become a Sotapanna, her faith in the Noble Triple Gem, one of which is the mahasanga, is unshakable. She only takes issue with desire, aversion and delusion. She does not see faults with the mahasanga. She does not see faults with people. She sees a problem. She doesn't see a person. Because she has come to realize that there is no self, there is no person to be found fault with. The problem is the disease. And that is what needs help to be extracted and removed and extinguished. That is why she took the problem to the Buddha. The Buddha asked, of course, who, Vishaka, did you see doing that wrong deed? And when they were having that conversation, neither the Buddha nor Vishaka was in any doubt that they were trying to address the issue, the problem, and not the person. Neither of them had any doubt around that. But think about yourselves. Do you consider yourself qualified to do the job of Vishaka? You must understand that for every occasion that Vishaka came to the Buddha and made complaints about the conduct of various monks and perhaps even nuns, for every occasion she did that, many times over, she made sure that she was there to safeguard the Shasana, to provide alms, to make sure that the monks and nuns were well looked after, to make sure that they had all the requisites that were required for them to be able to do what they came into the Shasana to do. She had given her entire self. She had become a committed and a lifelong disciple of the Buddha. In real terms, she was also a member of the mahasanga, or at least the sangha, in the absolute sense. Esa bhagavato savaka sangho. Who? Atta purisa puggala. As a Sotapanna, she had already reached the second stage of the 8 types of character who are considered to be the Sangha. So again, as you can see, that was a self-cleansing method. It was happening within the Sangha. So before you think it is wise to criticize, or even spend time watching the news, reading articles, I would say, please bear in mind that if on any occasion you see that it is a member of the mahasanga, a monk or a nun that is being criticized, either by a layperson or otherwise, best advice I can give you is switch off the television or change the channel. Don't be party to that. That is not a debate you want to be involved in. Because after all, the Buddha's instruction was not for you to go and find faults with the Sangha, monks or nuns, or really anyone who has come into the order. And must understand, folks, that is not only in the Buddha Shasana, but also in various other orders. It might be a father in a church, or attached to a church, or a nun, or a sister, or might be an imam attached to a mosque. Or it might be a pusari attached to a kovil. It does not matter what religion it is. I'd say it is best and safest for you to keep away from criticizing members of the clergy, because the clergy is a gift to all of mankind. They are here not for us to find faults with them, but for us to learn from them. If for some reason you believe that there is not much to be learned from that group of people or those individuals, then you are free to leave. No one's forced you to take instruction from a monk or a nun or an imam or a father. No one's forced you to do that. You're doing it out of your own free will. It's only a human right to follow a religion of your choice. It's not a human duty or an obligation, it's a human right. So you have a right to follow a religion of your choice. If it does not work for you, then leave. But don't find yourself to be the person who considers it his duty to cleanse the mahasanga or to cleanse the order of the Christian church or the mosque or the imams in there, or various other members of the clergy, whatever shape, size or form they come in. It is not your duty to question the conduct of the Pope. I don't think it is. Your duty is to learn from him whatever you can. Is to take him as an example. Learn kindness from him. Look at the way he shows kindness and generosity and compassion towards his fellow human beings. That is the lesson we need to learn. It is not our duty to go and find out what happens behind closed doors. Because in each order that has been established by a religious teacher, there will be methods and mechanisms for self-cleansing. Let that happen. Just like when you go to a shop to buy something, if something's gone off, right, you see there's some rotten fruit or some rotten vegetables, you don't talk to the shopkeeper and say, Mr. Shopkeeper, I think some of your product has gone off. Why don't you give me a brush or a broom and a dustpan, and I'll clean it all out, and I'll wash the place, and I'll throw away the old fruit and vegetables, and I'll clear it all out for you. You don't do that. You might, as a duty perhaps, or out of kindness, point it out to him or her, but I think that's where you'll draw the line, won't you? And if that shop does not work for you, if you think that all of that produce is no good for you, then you walk away, you go elsewhere. There are plenty of other places you can do your shopping. Guru Hamdru always talks about the supermarket concept. I think there's another angle to it. So I'd say apply the supermarket concept. And I suppose the reason that I'm talking about this is with the advancement of technology and these outlets of social media pervading all of society, every man, child and every man, woman and child now has access to technology that can either live stream or record and upload things that go on in society, right? It used to be that to make something publicly available and to take something to the eye of the public, it required a lot of time, it required a lot of money. But it's not so now. If you just go online, you will find various YouTube channels and various other media outlets, social media and so on, where more times than not, what you'll see is people washing other people's dirty linen in public. Social media was not invented for that purpose. It was invented for the good of mankind. But you know what mankind's like. Right? Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, Instagram, all these social media channels, they were not invented to wash other people's dirty linen in public. They were not invented for that purpose. They were invented for the betterment of mankind, so that people could share with others, share between themselves the good things that people do, the kindness that exists in society. People who need help, people who need support, to make other people known about them, or to get other people to know about them, to make them known to other people, to the philanthropers who had the resources, who had the methods to help these people. That is what the social media channels were invented for. But you know more than I do what they are used for now. That's just the way the world works. What I'm saying is, realizing that this is what's going on out there, I want you all to be careful and not fall into the trap that ignorant fools out there may try and get you into, because they don't realize that religion, a faith system, a belief system, the teachings of these religious leaders, they all came here, they all did an incredibly difficult job of expounding whatever their philosophy was. They all did that, enduring great pain, effort and hardship amidst a lot of challenge and obstacles for the betterment of mankind. They don't realize that. They don't realize that social media should not be used for the sake of it. Just because you have a smartphone doesn't mean you got to be uploading videos onto Facebook. Just because you have a computer or a tablet and with an internet connection doesn't mean you have to be recording things and putting that stuff on the internet. As I said, things that happen behind closed doors, behind curtains, away from the public eye, we must keep them there for the betterment of mankind, through kindness and compassion towards them. Do you not recall how, if you as parents, when you were bringing up your children, were there not things that you didn't discuss in front of them? Right, mother and father, were there not plenty of things you didn't discuss in front of them, in front of your children? Were there not things that you didn't allow them to see happen between the two of you? Weren't there things that you had to discuss when they were not at home? Sometimes you would wait until they went to school. Sometimes you would take them and leave them at a friend's place or your parents' place. Right? Because those were things that young children would not have been able to understand. They were not mature enough to grasp and to endure such things. They were too early to be exposed to things. A lot of things. So what did you do as responsible parents? Such things you didn't do or talk in their presence. Those things happened behind closed doors. Those things happened when they were not at home. Those things were talked about either in silence or in a very, you whispered things between each other, did you not? When your children were there, sometimes it was simply body language. You didn't speak them out in words because you knew if you had said that, they would come and ask out of curiosity. And then you'd have to give some answers, knowing that they're not ready for such answers. Right? So, I think this is what I meant. We have a duty and a responsibility towards ourselves as well as our fellow citizens, fellow human beings. And that is, just like we did with our children, just like our parents did with us, there are certain things that when they happen behind closed doors, we got to keep it there. And this is true more so than anywhere or with anything when it comes to the criticism of the mahasanga. With the advancement of technology and various channels, media outlets out there, it may be that every day something comes out of the woodwork. Someone's washing someone else's dirty linen in public. Let the dhobi do that. Don't you be the dhobi. Don't you go there to witness that and cheer on or criticize. The moment you see criticism, turn away. The moment you see particularly criticisms of the mahasanga, turn away. It is not in your benefit to be party to such conversations. Just like your parents said and did certain things in your absence, and particularly they didn't do such things and say such things in your presence, I want you to understand why they did so. They protected you. We have a duty towards society and feel that, perhaps you don't consider yourself to be a parent to society. I mean, an arahant is a father to all of society. An arahant is a mother to all of society. With motherly compassion, with fatherly grace, they look at society. It may be that it's almost impossible for you to reach that sort of level yet, but until such time, look away, switch off the TV, change the channel, walk away from such conversations. Don't find yourselves engaging in conversations. No, say no to those water cooler chats where they talk about, oh, this monk is like this, that nun is like that. You know what happened to this monk? You know what happened to that monk? Or that imam is like this, or this father, you know what he did at the church? Just walk away from such conversations, folks, I tell you. It is in your benefit to do that. Because every time you listen to something like that, every time you engage in such conversation, you are tainting your mind. The happiness that should prevail in your mind for you to achieve your ultimate happiness, you're destroying that. And then what's going to happen is sometimes you don't even know the truth about it. But when everyone else is criticizing, now, sometimes peer pressure, you start criticizing yourself without knowing the facts, without knowing the truth. You might start criticizing yourself, and then you fall back into Aryapada, potentially. Even if it's not the Noble Triple Gem, you're still reviling, desecrating something that society holds as sacred. That which has been created, invented, gifted for the liberation, for the salvation, for the freedom of mankind. If one uses it to imprison themselves, to entangle themselves, then such will be their fate. So please think about that. And in its very simplest of terms, you must understand that when it comes to the Dhamma, when it comes to your path on the Dhamma, do understand that if there is any problem, or if you have as yet struggled to achieve a state of happiness, to achieve a state of bliss, to achieve a noble attainment, to make progress on the path, stop pointing your finger towards the Dhamma or towards the teacher, and start pointing your finger towards yourself. And don't be someone who gives excuses, because when you give excuses, what you're saying is, the problem's not with me, the problem's with the Dhamma, the problem's with my teacher. And when you find yourself desecrating, it is actually an action of desecration. Something that is holy, something that is a gift, something that is sacred. When you find yourself reviling, insulting, something like that, then you can imagine the consequences of that. With every word you utter, with every syllable you utter, it becomes that much more difficult for you to understand the Dhamma. It will become that much more difficult for you to take instruction from your teacher. So as you listen to these sermons, or any other sermons, or perhaps if you're still in education and it's your lecturers or your teachers, or any other instruction you might be taking from someone, before you criticize, stop and think about what I have just shared with you today. Before you find excuses for your shortcomings, stop for a moment and think, what am I saying? What am I going to utter? Am I trying to say that the problem's in the outside? How come the same instruction, the same teacher has been able to help many, many other people, but I am the one who's not been able to get that help and support? Does that not say something? So is it fair for me to be throwing excuses? Is it fair for me to be saying that I can't understand it because it's my teacher? He's not good. He's not good enough. Not a good teacher. Or he's not virtuous. Is it fair to say that? What have you got to do with your teacher's virtue? Let me ask you a question. Imagine there's a serial burglar, a thief. He's decided to give a seminar on the evils of theft, on why people should not steal. On the consequences of theft. So he's decided to give a seminar. Would you attend that? He's a burglar, a serial burglar, and he's decided to give a seminar on the consequences of theft and why you should not be stealing, on all the bad things that can happen to someone if they steal. Are you willing to go to that seminar? If you're saying no, then you're not here. You're not here. You're not ready. You're not a student. You're looking for the teacher without first becoming a student. Doesn't work like that. You're checking at your teacher's virtue. You're looking at your teacher's virtue. You're asking yourself, is he is he fit enough to be teaching me this? If the man's going to be giving a seminar on why it's good to steal, then of course, that's not a sermon you want to go to. But he's going to be talking about, and you're absolutely sure about this. He's going to be talking about the consequences of stealing and why you shouldn't steal. But he, by profession, is a stealer or a robber, a burglar, a muggler, if you like. Would you attend? Would you not attend? Why does it matter to you that he's a burglar? If what he's preaching is that which is something worth listening to, something that is worthwhile taking and absorbing into your life and making a change in your life, then what he does behind closed doors, leave that to him. In the day, he preaches why it's bad to steal. At night, he's out, breaking into people's homes and looting. Leave that to him. All the consequences that he's preaching will, of course, come to him before it comes to anybody else. But that's for him to take away. You know, when the Buddha preaches kamma sakomhi, kamma dayado, kamma yoni, kamma bandhu, kamma patisarno, yang kammang karisami kalyanang va papakang va tassa dayado bhavisami. Just as much as it's important for us to understand that the consequences that come to us, the vipakas that come to us, are the results of our own actions, I think there's also another lesson to be taken from that. Other people's vipakas, they are their own actions. Other people's actions, other people's karmas, let them worry about that. Why are you worrying about someone else's karma? As if you're going to have to bear the consequence of that. Like you're going to have to be on the receiving end of the vipaka of that. It doesn't work like that. Other people's karmas are their karmas, and that's going to bring them vipakas. Your karmas are going to bring you vipakas. That's one way the Buddha is saying, keep your nose outside other people's affairs. And look into your own actions. So, if you are struggling with getting to grips with the Dhamma, to understand the philosophy, the teachings, it's about time you stop pointing the finger at the Dhamma. It's about time you stop coming up with excuses. And what I've tried to show you today, or what I have showed you today, is when you bring up such excuses, particularly if you say that it's something wrong with the teaching, or it's something wrong with the teacher, without saying that it's my weakness, I am lacking skill, I am lacking determination, I am lacking resolve, I am lacking strength and courage. It's my weakness, please help me. Without saying that, whenever you say the problem's out there, it's too difficult, it's too hard, it's impossible, I can't understand it, I don't get it, the problem's out there, I can't understand the teacher, he's not virtuous. Whenever you say that, you may fall in to the category of Aripod. And whenever you do that, it becomes that much more difficult. You're digging your own grave by doing that, I say. If it's difficult today, it's going to be twice as difficult the moment after you've said something like that. The moment after your excuse of it's too difficult because it's difficult, not I am difficult. Really, who's difficult here? It's difficult or I'm difficult? See, you got to understand this. It's too difficult for me. I think change your language, change the way you phrase these things. You can now say, I'm too difficult for it. Because that's the truth. Otherwise, every time you say something like that, it becomes that much more difficult. Otherwise, move on. If you are not deserving of that, then just move on. Don't criticize, just move on. Perhaps you are still not deserving of it. After all, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. So, if it looks like the teacher hasn't appeared, what does that say about the student? So, if you are not ready, either get ready or get out. Don't take someone else's seat. Important lesson there. No matter what aspect, what facet of life it concerns. I talked about this and along this topic long time ago when I said, make sure you point your finger inwards and not outwards. I'm showing you there's another aspect here. Do understand that. And once again I'll remind you, with the advancement of technology, social media, people will be washing other people's dirty linen in public like it's going out of fashion, like there's no tomorrow. Don't fall into the trap of being the onlooker. Don't fall into the trap of being the audience, who either cheers or criticizes. Particularly when it comes to members of the clergy. And what religion that is has no relevance here. Whether it's members of the clergy, of the Christian faith, the Muslim faith, or the Islam faith, the Hindu faith, Buddhist, makes no difference. Do understand that whoever the religious leader was, they came into this world and they gifted all of mankind, all of humanity, all sentient beings. They gifted whatever they had. The most sublime thing that they had, they gifted. And that was the philosophy that they believed and they lived by. Don't be someone who criticizes that. And don't be someone who criticizes people who have dedicated themselves to that practice. If they are doing wrong, then they shall suffer the consequences. Don't become a stakeholder in that. Make it your life's plan to become 100% stakeholder in your own company. Don't go buying shares in other people's lives. Because otherwise, when the dividends start coming, you'll also have to bear the consequences. But particularly, people are very keen and very interested in buying shares in the festering lives of other people's wounds, other people's weaknesses. There are some pretas you will have heard of. They sustain themselves by licking the pus or sucking the pus that comes out of festering wounds. That is their food. They can't eat anything else. They can't eat rice and vegetables and fruits, things like that people like you and I can. Their food is the pus that oozes from festering wounds. You got to stop and think, how did they become like that? Lives of pretas. How did they become like that? If you look into these lives, one of the main ways that they would have become, they would have fallen into this fate, would have been by digging up other people's graves, I mean metaphorically, obviously, looking for other people's weaknesses, rejoicing in other people's criticisms, things that have to be hidden under a bandage. That's what they do, right? These pretas, they won't allow a wound to be hidden under a bandage. They'll creep in and they'll start sucking on the blood and pus that oozes from the wounds. And they'll make sure that that wound does not heal. Some people have wounds that never heal. I'm sure you will have seen people like that. They just won't heal, no matter what level of medical intervention you provide it with, it just doesn't heal. Because it's not a medical problem, it's not a clinical problem. Whatever medicine you try to add to you try to use to heal the wound, the pretas, they add their own poison. So that the wound doesn't heal. They'll contaminate the wound. They'll contaminate whatever medicine they'll ensure that the potency of the medicine is taken out. So you think that you're treating the wound. The drug has no potency. Have you not seen people with wounds like that? Sometimes they come and go. Sometimes it'll go away for a short period of time, but again it'll resurface. No amount of medical intervention, however advanced it might be, heals the wound. I'm not saying in every situation there's a preta, but a lot of the time, right, there is a group of pretas like that. This is life in the woeful plane. They can only sustain themselves on the pus and old blood that oozes from a festering wound. So they will ensure that such wounds are not healed for their sustenance. I want you to think, how did they become like that? What are the types of sankharas that lead one to be born in such woeful planes? That which has to be kept hidden, they didn't allow for that. They've been digging up other people's graves. They've been looking for other people's wounds. And whenever they saw someone else's weakness, someone's shortcomings, they rejoiced in them. They talked about them. They shared them out. With others. They invited others to comment on them. They invited others to like them. You know what I'm referring to here. Don't be like that. Don't go looking for other people's weaknesses. If you spot someone else's weakness, the first thing you ought to do, and perhaps the only thing you need to do, if you can't be a Kalyana Mitra to go and point it out to them or their teacher, privately, to help them learn and change themselves. If you are not in a time and place to do that, then the only thing you need to do is take a lesson for yourself and ask yourself, do you find yourself engaging in such deeds? Do you find yourself saying such things? Do you find yourself conducting yourself in that way? If you do, fantastic, you just found a teacher. See, when your student is ready, the teacher appears. If you have the mindset of a student, in other words, whenever I see wrong, I'm looking at it, I'm observing it, not to criticize it, but to do a self-evaluation. Do I see this wrong in myself? Evaluate oneself and cleanse oneself. If you are doing it for that, and then that means you have the mindset of a student. You are a student. The moment you become a student, now the teacher is in front of you. What if you are not a student? What if you rejoice at the sight of other people's weaknesses? What if you like to spend time talking about how this person did that to the other person, that person did this to this person? What if you are the kind of person who likes to do that? No, you're not a student. So therefore, that's not a teacher. That event, that situation, that person is not a teacher. Same situation. As I said, when you are the student, the teacher, remember, you must understand, appears. Doesn't come from somewhere. The same situation develops into a teacher. It's your frame of reference that determines whether what you're looking at is a teacher or not. That whole thing lies with you. So particularly when it comes to the clergy, don't be someone who goes looking for their weaknesses. Don't go sharing out with them. If, for example, if you're on YouTube, right? I imagine there must be a lot of stuff out there these days. Both sometimes members of the clergy or members who claim to be people who claim to be members of the clergy, as well as lay people. They've got nothing better to do. They'll go criticizing members of the clergy, and they'll be bringing them out and to instigate problems in society. They just want a point of contention. They want to throw society a bone because they know the society is full of dogs. They want to throw society a bone because the way they see it, society is full of dogs. So I just want to throw society a bone of contention, as they say, so that they can all get together and start fighting around that bone, fighting with each other. Harmony and discord in society gone out the window, all because of the actions of this person, of people like this. Compassion, kindness, all that gone out the window. Patience, tolerance, all gone out the window. That is what they want to instigate. I hear a lot of things are going on like that now, out there now. Sometimes people who claim to be media, because nowadays, media is just anything. Anyone who's got a YouTube channel is a media person. Right? Self-made media personalities. I'm not saying they're all bad or wrong, because there are a lot of people who do a lot of good to society, and long may they be able to do so. But among them may be the odd individual or groups of individuals who will make it their life's purpose to not cleanse themselves. They'll think their duty is to cleanse the Sangha. That is not something that the Buddha advised to do. The Sangha has a self-cleansing mechanism. Just allow that to happen. That's a very natural process. Nature will always balance things out. So what they'll do is they'll when they find that there are members of the clergy who have different opinions on things, differing opinions on things, what they'll do is they'll create a stage for these members of clergy, and they'll create a debating area for them to come and debate. Just understand, what are they debating now? They're debating things about the Buddha. Right? What was Buddha like? Where was he born? Where did he pass away? Right? So now people have, there are no more problems left with their lives. What's left to do is now to discuss and debate the Buddha's life. All of their problems are now solved. No more problems. Right? They forget the fact that, the media person I'm talking about, he or she has forgotten the fact that he's just had a fight with his wife before he left home to come to his workplace, the studio. Right? He's forgotten the fact that he gets angry every time his child comes and makes noises when he's trying to fall asleep. He forgets all that. He's forgotten that he can't keep his eyes off the woman that lives next door. He's forgotten all that. Now the purpose of his life is to find out and make sure that the Buddha's life is clean and clear. That it's free of blemish. So he wants to clean the Buddha now. And then he wants to clean the Dhamma. So he says, Swaminatha, is it anitya or anicca, Swaminatha? So one will say what they believe is right. Then the other person, but I thought this Swaminatha says it was anicca. This Swamin says it's anitya. Right. Now 3, 2, 1, fight. Just think about what they're trying to do. It would have been better to hand the two of them 2 atom bombs and say, right, throw those two at each other and let's see what happens. It would have been better to do that. And once they create the stage for that, now everyone else at home, because again it's now on the internet, so freely and publicly available. All you got to do is sit on your sofa, on your couch, right? Grab something to eat and switch on your computer screen or your TV, and it's there. And the moment you add the tagline trending, now everybody wants to watch that. Right? And the view count starts picking up. And then people start sharing that stuff out because that's the most interesting thing to be watching right now. Right, let's cleanse the Sangha, let's cleanse the Dhamma, let's cleanse the Buddha. Do you see how they destroy, completely ruin their lives and every life they touch? We can't change this, folks. That is not the reason I'm saying this. None of them will ever listen to these words, I'm sure. I'm not trying to change society. I'm trying to help you here. I believe that those of you who listen to these sermons have decided for themselves that the way that society is going is not the path for us. Because you've tried that for a long time in your life. And you've realized that it's not doing any good for us. So then you decided to change your way, and then you came to seek refuge in the mahasanga, not clean the sangha. Right? It's buddhang saranang gacchami, not buddhang sodang gacchami. You're not here to wash it. You're here to take refuge in it. Dhammang saranang gacchami, sanghang saranang gacchami. I'm here to take refuge in the Dhamma, in the Sangha. Not to wash the Dhamma and the Sangha. You must understand, folks, that causing a schism in the sangha is only something that a higher ordained monk can do. I grant you that. It's fine. Yeah, I get that. But that's the heinous sin. That's the anantariya papakarma. For a bad deed to be committed, it does not have to be an anantariya papakarma. Only a member of the higher ordained Sangha can actually cause a schism in the Sangha, Sangha Beda. But as a lay person, you can come very close to that. You can come very, very close to that. I don't think you'd ever say, well, if it's Maha Raurave, that's fine, Swamin Wahanse, it's just Avidya, I just don't like that. I don't think you'd ever say something like that. Which one's worse? Maha Raurave or Avidya? Do you even need to be talking about that? When I'm telling you that a preta, its sustenance is by sucking on the pus that oozes from a festering wound, do we even need to talk about which one has more suffering, Maharauraya or Aviti? The Anantariya Papa Karma will take you into the Aviti, yes, but as a layperson you can come very close to that. You won't be an Anantariya Papa Karma because you're not a high ordained monk, but you can come very close to that. I'm trying to save you. Don't fall into that trap. Never find yourself sharing things that bring blame or criticism or dishonor on members of the Sangha or any religious order for that matter. If you get to hear one day about the misdoings of a father in a church, don't you be the one who shares that with the rest of your people. Pretend you never saw that. Move on with your life. And wish him well. Wish him, may you be healed from the fire of desire. May you be healed from the fire of aversion. May you be healed from the fire of delusion. May you be healed with the ultimate bliss of Nibbana, and move on. And take a lesson for yourself. Never, ever, ever find yourself criticizing, ridiculing, discussing or talking about the weaknesses of members of the clergy. When you one day become a member of the clergy, now it becomes your duty and your responsibility to be part of the self-cleaning mechanism. Now you can go ahead and do that. And again, there are ways to do that. There are methods to do that which have been established by he who established the order. Even in the Sangha Shasana, we can't do whatever we want to help another member of the Sangha clean his act and pull his act together. That we have to follow the instruction provided by the Buddha to the letter. We can't do whatever we want willy-nilly. It's not my Shasana, it's the Buddha's Shasana. So don't find yourself falling into that trap. Right? So I've tried to share with you two important lessons here, I think. First, never come up with excuses and say that the weakness, the fault, the flaw is with the system, with the method, with the teacher or the teaching. Right, simple example. Remember Guru Hamdru encouraged us to learn the Dhammapada? Right? There might have been those among you who said, it's just too hard for me. It's too difficult for me. Stop, rewind, now replay. But this time round, swap the two around. I am too difficult for it. Folks, I'm telling you how I discipline myself, how I find my own flaws and I fix them. Right, when he first started to teach, encourage us to learn and teach us the Dhammapada, did you all give it your 100% before you decided that it's not for me? Before you decided that it's just impossible, I can't do it? Did you give it your 100%? Is that because, I don't understand it, I can't understand any of the words in it, that's why I can't learn it? How did you learn your name? Right? As a child, you were told your name is whatever, right? Christina. How did you learn your name? Did it have any meaning? Okay, what was the name? What was the meaning of Christina? Did you go and find the meaning of Christina before you learned that was my name? Your brother was called Peter. Did you go and find the meaning of Peter before you learned it? Right, all the names that you use for your friends. Right, did you go and look up in the dictionary what those meanings are before you learned those names? But how many people's names, if I asked you to recall, can you recall at the drop of a hat? You can give me 100 names of people you know. But you'll say, Dhammapada, I can't understand that. So I can't learn it. Too difficult for me. No. I am too difficult for it. Be careful, you might commit aripod by trying to find faults with the Dhamma. So what you're saying is the Buddha didn't think about me when he preached the Dhammapada. Right? That's what you're saying. These are excuses I used to use in the past. Today I realized how foolish that was. How foolish I was. I'm telling you, don't make those mistakes. When you listen to these sermons, it may be that sometimes you don't understand it. I've encouraged you, do you not recall, I've said to you in the past, if you understand 1% of this, fantastic. 99%, don't worry, you'll get that over time. Do I have to practice what I preach before you listen to the preaching? What if I don't practice it? Would you not listen to me? Would you not come and listen to me? If it's helping you to help free your mind of defilements, whether I practice what I preach or not, what's it to you? So don't use those things as excuses. As a matter of fact, just drop all those nonsensical excuses. If you don't understand the Dhamma, then the problem's with you. The Dhamma is always right. You are the problem. Not the problems with you. You are the problem. So fix it. And to fix it, the only answer is the Dhamma. So once you blame the Dhamma, once you discarded the Dhamma, what else is there to fix you? You know how some people complain about the weather, the economy, right? The political system, the education system, right? Society, and the prices of foodstuffs, right? And everything else. You know, what's left? Once they've gone through their blame list, what's there for them to work with? They'll blame the sun, the rain, the skies, and the weather, and their teachers, and the politicians, and the economists, and the bankers, and they'll blame inflation. They'll blame the schooling system. I won't be surprised if I find someone blaming that the ground below their feet is too hard. Some people, when you get through their blame list, their excuse list, in other words, you got to wonder, how come they're still alive? It's a miracle that they're still alive. So don't be that one. Especially when it comes to the Dhamma. Don't try to find fault with the Dhamma. Don't try to find fault with your teacher. It matters not whether your teacher is someone who practices what they preach. If the preaching is something that you can accept, if you feel that the preaching there is integrity in the teaching, then follow it. As much as you possibly can, follow it. The bit you can't follow, that's your weakness, not the Dhamma. So that's one lesson I want you to take away from what we discussed there. The second lesson is, this will only increase going forward. You'll only have more of this. It's going to become profusely available, this sort of criticism. Right? You will find more and more. People will start to bring monks and nuns, as well as other members of the clergy of various other faiths and religions, onto the debating stage. Right? They'll, in the name of freedom of speech and technology. Now, just because you got freedom of speech doesn't mean you should use that to recommend that everyone go and hang themselves. Now imagine that. The guy all day long says, right, go hang yourself. I said, why are you saying that? Freedom of speech. They can say it, but should they be saying it? Right? So, with the advancement of technology, you will find more and more. If you just go on YouTube, I'm sure you'll find 1 million channels of self-made media personalities. They'll make it their life's purpose to cleanse the Buddha, to cleanse the Dhamma, and to cleanse the Sangha. Whilst all the time at home they've got 1 million problems, a myriad of problems at home. Doesn't treat his or her husband or wife properly, right? There's no peace at home. There's no faith or trust in that relationship. The guy gets angry like nobody's business. One wrong word and he goes blistering mad. He can't contain his I'm just using the word his as a common term, his or her, right? He can't contain their sensual urges. But what they think their purpose is now to cleanse the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. That will come up with all sorts of reasons. We need to leave our heritage for future generations. We need to clean and leave a good heritage for our future generations. Tell me, what did the Arahants back in the day do to leave the heritage for us? What did the Buddha Shravakas do back in the day to leave a heritage for us? The first thing they did is they went on to become Arahants. Remember when they did the Sanghayana? Only Arahants were allowed to join that. Buddha's chief attendant, the Venerable Ananda, was not allowed to join this first Sanghayana because he was not an Arahant. He probably might have been an Anagami person by that point, but he had not become an Arahant. And not just any old Arahant, you had to be an Arahant with Trividya, Ashtasamapatti, Shadabhigna. You had to be the full package. Otherwise you weren't permitted to join the Sanghayana, the first convention. Right? So what did those men and women back in the day do to leave a legacy for us, to leave a heritage for us? What they did was they first became Arahants. What are people doing nowadays? They consider that their duty is to go and cleanse the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. That which is already sublime, they want to go and clean that, when their life is in tatters. And they'll encourage you to do the same. They say we must expel these unvirtuous monks from the Shasana. We must expel these unvirtuous nuns from the Shasana. I'm talking in terms of the Buddhist Shasana. And the same will go for the other religions. We must expel this Imam. You must expel this father from the order. I'm asking you, what right do they have to do that? What qualification do they have to do that? And after all, even if they did, is that what your purpose has to be? Why did you come into this world? To clean the Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha? Or to purify yourself using them? If you were to see a man washing a bar of soap, what would you think about him? He's got a bar of soap in his hand and he's washing it under the tap. What are you doing? I'm cleaning this soap. Like, why? Because it's dirty. What was soap invented for? I repeat, let them carry on doing whatever they're doing. If they believe that that is their paramita, then let them carry on doing that. If they believe that is what their purpose is, it's not like, they're going to be listening to this sermon and go, oh, yeah, right, I shouldn't be doing this, I should be doing something else. Not going to happen. I'm not talking on their behalf, I'm talking on your behalf. Those of you who have made it their life's quest, their life's ambition to achieve your salvation. Whenever you go online, you will find a myriad of such videos and various other audios and things like that. And they'll just go viral. That's the new term, right? Things that go viral, aren't they the viruses in society? Look at those things that go viral. I think I mentioned this in the last sermon. When did you find the Four Noble Truths going viral? For every 10 videos that become viral, 9 of them, I'll give you one, okay? 9 of them will be something to do that instigates either desire, aversion, or delusion. It'll add fuel to those 3 fires. Don't fall for that trap, folks. I urge you, don't fall into those traps. These are traps that are laid in broad daylight. Don't fall into those traps. Do watch out. Be careful. The best thing you can do is whenever you hear, whenever you come across, whenever you see that it is a criticism of a member of the clergy, particularly a member of the clergy, look away. Close your eyes, close your ears, and close your mouth. Like the 3 monkeys. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. And ultimately do no evil. In the Buddha's words, he says, you have to be someone of that caliber to attain Nibbana. Kayana sangvaro sadhu, sadhu vachaya sangvaro, manasa sangvaro sadhu, sadhu sabbatta sangvaro. Sabbata sangaro bhikkhu sabba dukkha pamucchati. Sabba dukkha pamucchati. To free yourself from all suffering, you have to be someone who is pure in thought, word, and action. And a very important part of that is to not engage in the criticisms of the clergy. If you care so much about the purity of the clergy and the orders, then my invitation to you is go and join it first. First become a member. Right? So if you care so much about the purity of the Sangha Shasana, of the mahasanga, first become an anagarika, right? And then go on and become a monk, and then become a high ordained monk. Now it becomes your responsibility to ensure that the Buddha's orders and instructions are followed to the letter, so that the self-cleaning mechanism is always in place. That is the way to do it. Otherwise, leave that to the members of the clergy and take the Dhamma and nothing else. And get on with what you have come into this world to do. You haven't got much time left. No time to fuff around. Okay, so I really want you to take that on board. People have, I've been coming across, they have been saying that there are a lot of videos on YouTube and so on where people are criticizing each other, and particularly members of the clergy, right? And some people who call themselves media personalities, they'll bring monks and nuns, right? And there are all people who have dedicated themselves to the path, to the cause. What they'll do is they'll bring them from various corners of the globe, of at least of the island. They'll bring them onto a debating arena, and as I say, 3, 2, 1, fight. While all along, their life is a complete mess. That is not what the Buddha asked to do. I don't want any of you to be falling into that trap. I'm going to just go back to some of the questions that have been coming through and see if I can. We have some time to answer at least one or two questions. There's one question talk about help for gay and lesbian people and how the families deal with this issue, please. Help for gay and lesbian people. I think it's people who need help. Does not matter whether you're gay, lesbian, or heterosexual, or even if you're asexual. People need help. People with desire, aversion, and delusion, they need help. Right? Isn't that what we've been talking about all along? And how families should deal with that issue? Because otherwise this is just talking about convention, right? convention is, it's fine for people to indulge in sensual desires and fantasies in a monogamous and heterosexual relationship. But the moment you cross that boundary, now conventionally it is unacceptable. That's convention. Convention is for the world, so that people who live in this world can live without fighting with each other and tearing out each other's necks. I think there's plenty of advice and instruction out there on how you can live a happy life. So for me to be spending time talking on these sermons about a lot of that is probably not worth your while. So it's, what help can I give gay and lesbian people? Work on cleansing your mind of raga, dvesha and moha. That's the help I can give them. Understand the Four Noble Truths. Become a Sotapan as fast as you possibly can. And work towards your Arahathood. What else? Okay, what about help for someone who's addicted to cheesecake? Same as above. What about who's someone in a heterosexual relationship? Same as above. What about someone who's a womanizer? Same as above. What about someone who's addicted to drugs? Same as above. How do families deal with that? Help them do that, and the rest of the family should also do same as above. That's how you deal with that issue. What you're talking about here is, conventionally, it is seen that in some societies, again, there are other societies where it's very acceptable. For example, having lived in the UK for a considerable period of my life, there are parts of England in which the majority are homosexuals. And so places like Brighton, for example, every 1 out of 2 people, I'd imagine, would be in a homosexual relationship. If that is wrong, then prove to me that a heterosexual relationship is right. In both cases, instead of healing a wound, they're scratching away. They're scratching away at a rash, hoping to get some relief out of it. After all, that is what sensuality is. Whether that is sensuality through the eye dough, the ear dough, nose dough, the mouth dough, or the tongue dough, or the body dough. Any of these 5 sense doors matters not. When we talk about sensuality, I don't necessarily talk about the 5th sense door only. This applies to all of the 5 sense doors. Right? So, if you are addicted to anything, so one guy is addicted to bird watching. How does the family deal with that issue? Another guy is addicted to gambling. How does the family deal with that issue? As I said, if you can prove to me that a heterosexual relationship is right, then I'll show you what the problem is with the homosexual relationship. But first you've got to prove to me that is right. In other words, that sort of relationship is exactly what you ought to be doing to attain your Nibbana. Get into a heterosexual relationship. If you can tell me that is the path to Nibbana, then I'll show you how a homosexual relationship is not the path to Nibbana. I think that's just, we shouldn't be wasting time talking about these various orientations that people have, because after all we need to be looking at is raga, desha, moha. That's where the problems are. These are the problems we need to be addressing, and these problems, these are the various shapes and sizes and colors that they come in. That's all it is. These are all symptoms of desire, aversion and delusion. These are all symptoms. So the question here is, how do you deal with symptoms? We always treat the root cause. I think that's where we need to focus. In the meantime, if there are remedies that you can use to relieve yourself of the symptoms, then for as long as they, you're not going to get into trouble for using those remedies, then go ahead. For as long as you're not going to get in trouble and you're not causing yourself and others any harm, then go ahead. What are meritorious deeds after all? These are remedies, this is pain relief. Meritorious deeds. Remedies for symptoms. Meritorious deeds is not treatment for the root cause. That is only anicca, dukkha and anatta. So gays and lesbian people out there, do what everyone else does to achieve their Nibbana. What you need to be doing is no different to what anyone else needs to be doing. And how do the families deal with that? You should all do the same. Practice the Noble Eightfold Path and attain your salvation. Because if you are having a problem with the fact that your son is a gay person, that is your problem. You need to be practicing anicca, dukkha, anatta. If you have a problem with your daughter being a lesbian, then that is your problem. Do you think Arahants made it their purpose to go and make all the homosexuals heterosexuals? Their purpose was to show the world that a sexual want, a sexual need is a defilement. It's a rash that needs to be scratched regularly. So, how about treat yourself so that you can be free of that rash? That's what we are doing. Right? So that's the answer to that question. Some of the other questions are, I think they need more time to answer. Someone's talking about free will. I was contemplating on Kayanupassana as advised by the Venerable Thero. In my contemplation, I came across the notion of free will. Would the Thero deem it fruitful to speak about this in one of the upcoming deshanas? How should one approach it regarding practice and progressing on the path? Free will. Free will. Free from what? Aren't these two words the complete opposites of each other? Free and will. That's not free. And when you say, I will have something done, or I will do something, that's not free. Now you're holding on to something. Isn't that so? I will do something. Meaning, I won't be at rest until I have done that. I will do it. So that's a promise. That's a commitment, either to oneself or someone else. I will do something. Meaning it has to be done. So if something has to be done, how can a free man talk about something that has to be done? So I think these two words are opposites of each other. But I think what they're talking about here is this idea of people feel that they think and they do things. Again, one that needs to be discussed in detail. I'll try and see if I can offer an answer in a few minutes, but if you don't understand, it's okay. This is something we'll address in future. So he or she is talking about kaya anupassana. So as advised by in our sermons. So for example, as you're walking, it's natural to feel that you think you're walking, or in other words, you feel that you are walking. Now you can stop walking, and then you start to walk again, and you feel that you are deciding to do these things. So people think that they have free will. So when someone says, right, see, I have free will, I can lift my arm up whenever I want. And they'll say, look, I just raised my arm, see? So I have free will. My question is, how did you decide it was your right arm? Who told you it was your right arm that you needed to lift? And to prove the point that you've got free will, why did you choose lifting your arm as opposed to nodding your head? Who made that decision? And whose idea was it that you've got to prove that you have free will? Who made you want to ask that question? Why did you ask that question? As in, who prompted you to ask that question? Don't I have free will? Who prompted you to ask that question? Think about this. Rather than me offering answers every time, I like you to start thinking and try and find some answers for yourself. I'll guide you. Do you want me to fish for you, or shall I teach you how to fish? What would you prefer? Only one problem with the former. The day I'm not here, you'll starve to death. That is not the duty of a teacher. That is the duty of a slave, to fish for its master. So think about these things, right? When you say for example, you listen to a sermon on kaya anupassana, right? And then you decide, okay, so Swami Nuhas is saying that this is all vipaka, but I can walk when I want to walk. So now clearly when you have that question in your mind, that's a question, right? So that you've come across a point of contention. So in the sermon we are talking about vipaka, and now you're thinking that this can't be vipaka because I'm the one who's doing it. This is free will. My point is, who asked you to think like that? Did you think to yourself, right, I'm going to think now and then think? I'm going to think about free will. Okay, who asked you to think about free will? Or who asked you to think about thinking about free will? Do you get my point? Who asked you to think about free will? You're thinking about free will now, right? When I say this is all vipaka, this is all driven by vipaka, and you hear that, you don't listen that, right? You hear that, and then in your mind, all of a sudden, you have a point of contention. Oh, hang on a second. Swami Nuhas just said that's vipaka, but hang on, I'm the one who's doing this. And you will even say, well, I can get up and walk out of this sermon anytime I want. So, this train of thought, who's the driver? Who started the engine? Before you thought to yourself, I'm going to have this point of contention, did you think to yourself, right, Swami Nuhas just said this, now I'm going to think about the fact that something doesn't sound right, or I don't agree with what Swami Nuhas is saying, and then you started to think about free will? So let me give you a much simpler example. Okay, I say cat. Okay, try and not understand what I'm telling you now, okay? Today is a lovely day. Don't understand it. You got free will, right? Don't understand the next thing I'm going to tell you. Have a nice day. Oh, why did you just understand that? Don't understand it. Because you've got free will, haven't you? So you can choose what to understand, choose what not to understand. Why should you just understand something I told you not to understand? What have you got to say? When you see someone and if you fall in love, try and not fall in love. Try and not see beauty in something that you find beautiful. Right? I show you a flower from your garden, or a flower vase that you have on your fireplace, or some stool, somewhere at home in your living room, and I tell you, don't see a flower in this flower. When you see this, don't see a flower. See an elephant. Can you? But you got free will, right? So you can see whatever you want to see. I mean, you can't stop, of course, the light coming through your eyes and hitting your eyeballs, and that's the physiological stuff. You can't stop that. Okay, I'll give you that, right? And then it comes and hits the mind, right? So because when you're talking about free will, yes, I know you're talking about kayanupassana here, but again, it's the mind that we're trying to discipline here, not the body. We just discipline the body through the mind, right? So this sight has just reached your mind as Rupa Vedana Sanya Sankara Vijnana. Now you're seeing a flower. I'm telling you, stop seeing a flower and see an elephant. Okay, now see a goat. Okay, see it upside down? What are you seeing? You're still seeing a flower, aren't you? You know that it's a flower. Stop knowing that it's a flower. As you're looking at this flower, stop thinking that you're looking at a flower. You got free will. You're free to think whatever you like, right? So stop thinking that it's a flower. Stop understanding what I'm telling you right now. Are you still understanding what I'm saying? Don't, because you've got free will. You get my point? We'll talk about this in future in more detail. As I said, in a few minutes, I wanted to prove to you that there is no such thing as free will. After all, free and will can't go together. If you're free, then there can't be a will, and if there's a will, you can't be free. So there is no such thing. There's no such thing. It's a fallacy. This is all vipaka driven. The only thing karma can do is create suffering. And after all, if if there's free will, okay, become an arahant now. I'm going to count to 3. I want you to become an arahant. Because you've got free will, right? 1, 2. Okay, venerable arahants. From next week we don't have sermons because we don't need them anymore. You're all arahants. So please do sermons. Bahujana hitaya, bahujana sukhaya, charada bhikkhaves. Right? So again, no more sermons. Is that fine? But I thought you got free will. So are you choosing not to become an arahant? Why should I preach to you then? After all this effort I'm putting into these sermons, you have chosen not to become an arahant. Remove raga, desha, moha. Alright, come on. 3, 2, 1, go. But you got free will. You get my point, don't you? Good. I think that will be enough questions for one day. We'll pick up where we left off in a future sermon. Right, so some general and actually I think a lot of useful advice that I wanted to share with you today. Because I see that a lot of people will still be falling or will have fallen into this trap. Particularly, something tells me perhaps I should have shared this advice with you soon after the pandemic hit, right, when you were all at home and people had nothing better to do than to spend their life on YouTube. But better late than never. And I've just seen it's become apparent to me that there's a new wave of this social cleansing going on. And unfortunately, it's not just social cleansing. They're trying to clean the Sangha. Let the Sangha do that. Right? The Mahanayaka Theros and the Anunayaka Theros of all the chapters, right? They are capable, perfectly capable of doing that. If they want to do that, let them do that. And the mahasanga have methods and means and techniques and mechanisms to do that. As lay people, can I advise you to keep your let me put it politely, right? Keep out of that stuff. It's not any good for you. It is not. If you want to really cleanse the Sangha, become one of them and then do your duty. Otherwise, sort out your own issues. When there's so much going on in our lives, folks, how can we even have time to sort out clean the triple gem? We're trying to polish the gem. This is the noble triple gem. There is nothing to be polished in it. Right? There are minds which may be defiled. It makes me laugh that people are trying to clean the life of the Buddha, where he was born and where he passed away. Where did the Buddha say, I spend time trying to figure out where I was born and if I was born and whether I passed away or where I passed away? People are wasting their time like it's coming from an unlimited supply. You know what the Buddha said? Look at where you are going to be born. What are people doing? They're spending time trying to find where the Buddha was born. But the Buddha said, look at where you're going to die or how you're going to die. And what do people do? They spend time trying to find out where the Buddha passed away and how he passed away. Let people who are focused on that and consider it their paramita, maybe it is, let them do that. Don't you fall into that trap. I think you have much better things to be doing with your time. I think there are much better things you ought to be doing with your time. It may be that they have no more defilements and therefore their time is spent trying to cleanse the triple gem, so let them do that. But I think, normal people like you and I, who've still got defilements in our minds, we have a much more arduous, a much more challenging task to hand. So how about we let them worry about that? Let's not be their audience. Become a student of your own life. Drop that telescope, pick up that microscope. Look at yourself. Take a long, deep look at yourself and start working on yourself. I think that's what you need to be doing. Do you remember the stories of the Arahants that Venerable Dasatero talked to you about, related to you? Mahamoggallana Thera, Patachara, the great nun. And then last week you got to hear about Angulimala Thera. Right? Did you, in any of their stories, find them going to polish the triple gem? Finding out where the Buddha was born, where he passed away, or getting the monks to debate among themselves the Dhamma, or trying to clean the Sangha? No, they used the triple gem. They didn't go washing bars of soap. They used the bar of soap to wash themselves. That is how they went on to clean themselves, discipline themselves, drop all their defilements, and become noble ones. Become the great elders. Become, I'd say, almost perfect ones. You can't have another perfect one, but you can become almost perfect. That is what the Buddha Shasana is for. To become a perfect one or to become an almost perfect one. Right? You must take you must take lessons from these lives. Again, I remind you, the stuff that I draw on a whiteboard and try and explain to you, that is the easy stuff. This is a means to the end, and the end is in the stories that Dasaham relates to you. That is what you need to be aiming for. If you can't become an Arahant, then none of this is of any worth. I'll drop these sermons the moment I realize that you can't become an Arahant. I'm not going to be doing any more sermons after that. If I realize one day, becoming an Arahant is impossible, that's it, no more sermons. I know that it's possible. That is why we do these sermons. Exclusively for aspirants of Nibbana. That is what we are about. That is what you are about. Because you are aspirants of Nibbana. right? So take lessons from those lives. Today you have another wonderful story about a great nun in the Shasana. A lot of things you can take from her life. But for that you have to keep an open mind. And you have to be open to those ideas, and you have to be a student. Remember, these stories are not related to you just to show you that there were these great figures in the history of the Shasana that we can revere and worship. The true meaning of worshipping is to instill those values in our life. You have not worshipped until you have made a resolve, a determination to take those virtues and instill them within your life. So if you really want to worship and venerate and revere these great characters, these great personalities, then you must take those lives and embed their virtues, their qualities in your life. That is the true mark of a worship. So listen to the story that we have lined up for you today, and take a lesson from it. You don't need to take 100 lessons from them, but you take one lesson from it. And what we have also decided is to publish those segments as separate sermons for more convenient listening. So that can be made available as a playlist, for example, on YouTube. Then particularly those who may find it difficult to understand some of the deep Dhamma concepts can still have an exemplary figure, a hero in their life, by studying the lives of these arahants and these elder nuns, and then at least making it their life's ambition to one day become like them, because actually they became themselves by one day seeing another great elder, Pero or a nun, excuse me, in the dispensation of a previous Buddha, and they thought to themselves, this is my hero, she's my hero, I want to become my heroine, I want to become like him, I want to become like her. Okay, so take lessons from these lives and transform your lives. Is an advice I always remind you. That is the purpose of these stories. In future, I also have a plan to bring you the Jataka tales. That will happen some point in the future. There are lots of Jataka stories. These are the previous incarnations of the Buddha and his disciples. They came a long way to achieving Buddhahood, and in those stories we are shown how he fulfilled the paramitas. A lot of these stories are stuck in the pages of books, which are stuck in cupboards, which are stuck in libraries, in big buildings. Sometimes never to see a wounded soul, a wounded mind, which can be healed. So our purpose is to bring that which has to be out with you, touching your lives, changing and transforming your lives and healing those wounds, really to you. Medicine should not be stored in cupboards until they rot. they should be brought out and put to good use, because this medicine is very rare. We won't have it for very long. People are dying every day. One day it's pandemics, next day it's Al-Qaeda, next day it's something else, right? So every day people are dying, and these are all people who, if given the chance, can make a difference in their life. So it is our purpose to bring the medicine for the soul that is in the books, in the teachings that were given to us by our teachers, by the great elders of the past. This is our heritage. This is our legacy. We want to leave behind, and we leave that behind by transforming others like our teachers have helped us do to ourselves. Okay? So on that note then, we will conclude the sermon, this segment of the sermon, and now we'll leave you in the capable hands of Venerable Dasadero, who will relate a story of one of the great nuns of the past, from which you can take a lot of lessons into your life, and I hope you will listen to that attentively, take those lessons, and begin a journey of transformation, so that one day you can become like her. Okay? So may the blessings of the Noble Triple Gem be with you all forever.
Okay, can you all be upstanding and recite the namaskar with me? Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Okay, you may be seated. So today we are going to be talking about a story of Arhat Mehinwansa, who you could say went through a lot of pressure, went through a lot of pain in her life. But the Buddha came in and saved her. And helped her to stop suffering once and for all. So, let's go back to the time of the Buddha. So, there was a very rich merchant who had a lot of money, who had a lot of friends, who had a happy life. But then, one day, he went to his storeroom where he kept all of his gold, and found out that all of it has gone. Now, he couldn't think straight after that, because think about it, without money he couldn't buy clothes, buy food, and after a few days even friends started to leave him. And what's worse, he had a son and daughter. He had a son and a daughter, and both of them are coming of age. They need to be married off. But this rich merchant was rich merchant, has lost all of his money, and he won't be able to pay for a dowry for both of them. Now, because of this and so many other reasons, he went into a state of, you could say, depression, where he isolated himself from others, didn't want to talk with anyone else, couldn't eat, couldn't sleep well, and he couldn't bear the pain that he's now got no money left. But one day, one of the family's good friends, a friend of the father, came to the house and went to this merchant, went to the father, and told the rich merchant that, look, dear friend, there's no point of lamenting, there's no point of crying over something that you've lost. How much of this crying will help you gain this money back? How much of this crying will make you happy again? So stop crying. Crying won't solve anything, so let's make a plan so you can get your money back, and or at least stop being sad and finally be happy again. So let's look at your problems. Okay, so you've got no money. And why don't we look around the house and look for something to sell? So both of them, they went around the house looking, and they found a bag of coal which they used to cook. And so the rich merchant, or the father of the house, went to his friend and said, look, dear friend, all I have is coal. How am I supposed to get back my money but all I have is just this coal left. And his friend said, well, you've got coal, why not try selling that? Who will buy coal? Coal is some cheap material. No one's gonna buy that. Even if they buy that, how am I supposed to be rich by selling coal? Well, my dear friend, if you don't try, you'll never find out. So, friend, why don't you go into town tomorrow, set up a stall right next to the others in the middle of town, and start selling your coal. You've got nothing else to sell, so and you're a merchant. Your business is in trade. You've got good marketing skills, so I think you'll be able to sell this coal. Okay, so that's one problem complete. This one's gonna be hard. How are we gonna marry off your son and daughter? Well, I believe that while you're in town trying to sell this coal, you're gonna meet various people. Some of them will start laughing and ridicule you, saying, why are you selling coal? It's useless. You're not going to get much money from that. No one's going to buy your coal, and so on and so forth. But I believe that there'll be another type of person who will say, why are you trying to sell gold? And if someone says that, ask them to pick up this gold and give it to you. Now, if this person who says that they're saying gold is a woman, an unmarried woman, marry her to your son. But if this is an unmarried man, marry him to your daughter. So now this merchant has a plan. And with a determination, the next day he sets out in the middle of town, set up a stall right next to the clothes, well, near the clothes and the food and all the other things that are being sold in the middle of town. He sets up a stall and places his bag of coal, and he starts his business. So most people, they come up to the store, look at what this merchant is selling, and sees that he's selling coal. Most of them laugh and say, why are you selling coal? Well, sir, this is all I have. But coal is not going to get you far. You're just wasting your time here. Some people even make fun of him. But through all this, he's determined to sell his coal, to get back the money that he's lost. But every now and then, he looks around to check if this person who can see the gold, the so-called gold, so in the evening, a young woman comes by the store and asks, "Dear sir, why are you selling gold?" "What do you mean, why am I selling gold?" "Well, dear sir, are you sick of this gold?" "Well, show me. Pick up this so-called pick up this gold and show me." The moment this young woman picks up the coal turned into gold, and he gave it to the merchant. So the merchant asked, "Madam, what is your name?" "Sir, my name is Kisa Gautami." "Sir, my name is Gautami, but my friends call me Kisa Gautami." "Are you married?" No, I am looking for a husband, but no one seems to want me." Well, Kisa Gautami, I have a son who I would like you to be married with. I would like you to marry. And so Kisa Gautami was overjoyed. Because Kisa Gautami wasn't, in those times, you were called beautiful. Because Kisa, because her friends call her Kisa Gautami, right? Kisa means lean. So, or haggard, which means she was tall and thin. And also she came from a poor background, which means she didn't have much money either. She didn't have good quality clothes. But she was coming of age, and she was looking for her husband. So after a few days, Kisa Gautami and the rich merchant's son get married. But soon after, Kisa Gautami gave birth to a son. Now this son was a person which Kisa Gautami loved so dearly. She loved to hold it in her hands. She loved to cuddle the baby, and everything that a mother normally does, she used to love doing it. She loved her child very dearly. But unfortunately, after a few months, this child became sick. Temperature rising, losing color, and so on and so forth. So Kisa Gautami decides to go around to look for some medicine. But before she met a doctor, the child had died. Now Kisa Gautami was very young, but she couldn't handle the pain of her child dying, a child that she loved very dearly. Who she enjoyed talking to, she enjoyed playing, she enjoyed doing all of that. But now the baby had died. She's not able to do any of that. She's not able to even see the baby smile, to have it talk in baby language back to her. None of that. But she did not accept that the baby was dead. She couldn't accept that the baby was dead. So carrying the baby in her arms, she went to the doctor. She went to a doctor. The doctor looked at the baby. Madam, are you asking me to treat this baby? Yes, he's my son. He hasn't been drinking his milk for a long time now. He's really weak. He's really tired as well. He doesn't even talk to me. But I think he's angry with me as well. He doesn't even look in my direction. He won't even tell me what I did wrong. See, doctor, please, can you give me some medicine to help him? Madam, the child's dead. See, it's lost its color. That's what I'm telling you. Doctor, the child has not eaten in hours. Please, can you give some medicine to make him better? Madam, the child's dead. It looks like it died hours ago. I can't give him medicine. There is no medicine to cure the dead. Well, if you can't do it, I'm gonna look for someone else. And she goes, leaves the doctor, going to the next person she meets, trying to look for the medicine. She would knock onto doors and ask, dear sir, or dear madam, do you have any medicine for my son? He's extremely ill. He won't even talk with me. He won't talk to me. He doesn't even smile. I think he's angry with me because I wasn't able to help. I wasn't able to help him when he was ill. When he had a headache or when he was in pain, I wasn't able to help him. So I think he's angry with me. So do you have any medicine, please? But all of them kept saying, no, we can't help you. He's dead anyway. But each and every time she didn't accept that her child was dead, she would go on the next person, try and look for the medicine. Every now and then she'll go look at a baby and go like, dear child, please talk to me. I'm not angry with you. I'm sorry if I've done anything wrong. Please forgive me. And as time goes by, this baby becomes colder. Every time the corpse became colder, she would try to feed it, saying, please child, please drink some milk, just a bit. It'll make you feel better, I promise. Just drink a bit. Trying to feed the baby. And as the corpse starts to change color, she would wrap the baby in warm clothing because she thinks it's cold. She thinks it's shivering. And as the corpse starts to give off bad odor, she would go to the nearest lake, go to the nearest pond or river, and would bathe the child, being extremely careful not to get water in its mouth or in its nose. Kisa Gautami had a black veil over her eyes, and she was unable to see it, unable to accept that her son was dead. Soon after, people used to make fun of her. Used to call her names. Like whenever she asked them for medicine, they may slam the door in her face. But each and every time, no matter what anyone did, she would go from door to door with the baby either on her hips or the baby in her arms, carrying a corpse. So after some time, through the period, so in the middle of after some time, she met a man. This man saw Kisa Gautami and felt very sympathetic towards her. Knowing that she couldn't come over the grief that her son has died, went up to Kisa Gautami and said, Madam, what is it that you want? And so Kisa Gautami says, Sir, I need some medicine for my child. See, it's very sick. Please, can you please help me? So this kind man replies, I'm sorry, I don't have any medicine. But I do know of a doctor that can cure any illness, any problem. Have you met him before? No, I haven't. Please, can you tell me where he is? Is it far? Because if it's far, I'll go. I'll take the distance. I'll walk the way there. No, it's not that far. There's a bit of distance, but you'll be able to walk it. See, in Jethavarama Monastery, there lives a doctor, a great doctor. He'll be able to he'll be able to cure your child for you. So Kisa Gautami, after thanking the man, puts a child onto a hip and starts to make her way to the monastery. Like the man said, the journey wasn't too far, but there was a distance that she had to make to get there. But when she went into the monastery, she found the doctor. The doctor was preaching to a group of people. So she decides to walk to the doctor and worships the doctor and asks, oh, Venerable Sir, you see, I have a big problem. I have my son is very ill. He hasn't drunk milk in a long time. He's cold. He's changing color. Please, doctor. Please, Venerable Sir, can you please help him? See, I think it's even angry with me. It's not talking with me. All I want to do is see his laughter. He wants to see him smile, to hear his baby sounds. Now Buddha, through his divine eye, sees that Kisa Gautami is able to understand the Dharma, but right now, in the current moment, her mind is covered in a thick black fog. which she couldn't see, which the Dharma couldn't even penetrate. So the Buddha says, Kisa Gotami, I can cure your child for you. What? Really? Oh, Venerable Sir, what do you need? How much is it for the medicine? Okay, Sir Gotami. This medicine doesn't cost much, but it's something that only you can prepare. So you need to get the ingredients as well. Oh, Venerable Sir, what is it? What do I need to bring? Is it oil from? Or is it expensive oil? Is it a flower on a high mountain, or whether it's anything? Oh, Venerable Sir, I'll do it. Please tell me what is it that I need. Okay, Sir Gautami, it's not that hard. All I need is a couple of mustard seeds. Everyone who was listening was astonished that the Buddha is going to cure a dead child with a couple of mustard seeds. So Kisa Gautami asked, "Oh, Venerable Sir, is there a type? Is there some special type that you need?" No, Kisa Gautami, I just need the normal mustard seeds. I just need a couple. Wait, when you mean couple, do you mean do you need sackfuls or jarfuls? No, Kisa Gautami, just a couple. But there's one condition. You have to take these mustard seeds from a home where no one has died. So Kisa Gautami, overjoyed that all she needs is a couple of mustard seeds, jumps up, worships the Buddha, and makes a journey with her child to the first house she sees. It's only mustard seeds. Anyone who cooks, who has a kitchen, has mustard seeds. So she goes to the first house she meets and knocks on the door. You could imagine that a woman opened it and was surprised that she was holding a dead baby and probably tried to get rid of her. But when Kisa Gautami asked for mustard seeds, you can imagine that the owner of the house was surprised and was like, "Mustard seeds? Yes, all I want is a couple of mustard seeds." And you can imagine that the householder went to the kitchen and comes back with a jar full of mustard seeds. "Here, you can take the lot. I've got some more." "Oh no, that's fine. I only need a couple." You can imagine just seeing the mustard seeds, the amount of the happiness that Kisa Gautami is going through. That she's now got the medicine for her child. That she'll be able to hear the baby talk again. And so you can imagine that she took a handful And just before she left, you can imagine that Kisa Gautami asking the householder, "Oh, there's one thing. Has anyone died in this house before?" "Oh, yes, of course. My husband died about a month ago." Now Kisa Gautami, devastated, goes and gives his master seeds back and says, "I'm sorry, I can't accept them." You can imagine that she still has got the determination, so she goes to the next house. Again, rapidly knocks on the door, and when they open the door, she's all like, "I'm sorry, sir," or "I'm sorry, madam, to disturb you, but do you have some mustard seeds?" And again, they say, "Yes, we've got mustard seeds. How much do you want? How many do you want?" And just a couple. You can imagine the first few houses, each and every time she receives the mustard seed, takes it in her hand, and then she asks if there's anyone has died. And of course, the second house, there was obviously a person who had died in that house. So the man or woman who answered the door probably said, "I'm sorry, but my grandparents, they died like 6 months ago." So again, Kisa Gautami makes her way to the next door. Slowly, Kisa Gautami goes door to door. Every single time she's disappointed that someone had died. Whether it's a mother, whether it's a father, whether it's a husband, whether it's a wife, whether it's a relative, whether it's a son, whether it's a daughter. In each and every household, someone had died. So each time she knocked on the door, each time she tries to look for these mustard seed, she slowly comes into realization that it's not possible. Everyone is prone to death. Everyone will end in death. Whether it's a mother, whether it's a father, whether it's a husband, whether it's a wife, whether it's children, whether it's relatives, they'll all die. Soon her mind was free from the madness. She was able to regain her sanity again. She was back. She was sane. And not only sane, she was able to soften her mind, ready to take the seeds of the Dharma. So by the end of the day, she finally realized that this was not possible. I will not be able to find mustard seeds from a household that hadn't died, that no one had died. So she decides to take her baby. She goes to the nearest cemetery. She digs a small hole, places her child in, You can imagine that she went and plucked some flowers plucked some flowers and laid it with the baby. Said her goodbyes and left, making her journey back to the doctor who was going to help her baby. So slowly she makes her way back to the Buddha, and as the Buddha sees Kisa Gotami, he asks, Kisa Gotami, did you find any mustard seeds to start making the medicine? Kisa Gotami replies, Venerable Sir, I'm done with mustard seeds. You can imagine tears rolling off her eyes. There's no point of looking for mustard seeds. Please, Venerable Sir, I'm lost. Please, give me a refuge. And so the Buddha preaches the Dharma to give her refuge in the Noble Triple Gem. So he preaches a sermon and recites a Dhammapada Gatha. He recites Tam Putta Pasu Sammattam Vyasatta Muna Sannaram Suttam Gamam Mahagova Machu Adaya Gachati. Which means the man who donates on his children and herds of cattle, so of things, whose mind longs for and is attached to sensual pleasures, is carried away by death, even as a sleeping village is swept away by a great flood. Now, the moment the Buddha preaches the Dharma, Kisa Gotami attains the first sainthood, Sotapanna. And at that moment, she asks the Buddha, Venerable Sir, please can I be ordained? And so the Buddha told her to go to the nunnery and get herself, and so when she did, she went there and got ordained and went into higher ordination as well to become a bhikshuni. So Kisa Gotami, after burying her child, after listening to the Dharma, she now is a bhikshuni, a nun, who is now a disciple of the Buddha. So she now strives really hard, like she strove to find medicine for her baby. She now strives harder than ever to purify her mind and remove it from all mental defilements. She was a very hard-working bhikshuni, and she fulfilled all of her religious duties and was a role model to most others. So Bhikshuni Kisa Gotami, one day, she had lighted. She had lit some oil lamps, and having lit them, she decides to walk. So she decides to sit near them. And as she sat near them, she realized that these flames are like living beings. Some of them flare up while others they flicker out. But it's only when they reached Nibbana are they fully extinguished. So the Buddha, seeing this through his divine eyes, that Isagotri is now very close to reaching her goal, he projected a radiant image of himself and instructed her and gave her and preached to her some and the Dharma as well. And he also preached another Dhammapada Gatha. Yocha vassa satan jive appasam amatam padam ekan jivitan seyo passato amatam padam. Which means, though one should live 100 years without perceiving the deathless state, it is better indeed is a single day of one who perceives the deathless state. So he almost gives the cure for death. And so Kisa Gautami became, after contemplating on what the Buddha said, Kisa Gautami became an Arhat Mahinwasa. A person, she found the cure for death. She found a way that now her child or anything could no longer affect her mind. She can live happily. She understood that noble friendship or associating noble people is very important. So she in the Therigatha she praises noble friendship or associating noble people. She was a person who was very much a role model to many people, and she also in the Therigatha she also describes a person that she knows. She describes she goes on with a person who, she says that I have seen a woman who in their time gave birth when their time to give birth comes near, bear a child on the way before coming home, then find dead their own husbands, A wife once lost both her child. Her destitute husband, he too died. She saw them all, mother, father, brother, burned together on one funeral pyre. So, in Kisa Gautami's Therigatha, she describes knowing a person who had a child on her way home, but then found her husband dead. Then she lost both of her children and saw her mother, father, and brother burn together on one funeral pyre. So she knows. So it shows that she's seen, or she's met Bhattacharya. So Kisa Gautami was a person who saw all of this, and now when she became an arhat, now she was not affected. Now, no matter how many sons had died, she was no longer affected by this. Like once, even Mara came to the Bhikshuni Kisa Gautami and tried to tempt her. So Mara asked, like, why aren't you sad that your son died? Are you alone? Are you alone crying? Like, why are you in the forest alone? Are you looking for another man? Kisa Gautami, the Vishnu Kisa Gautami tells Mara, I'm sorry, Mara, I'm well past the death of my sons, and I am no longer in need of men. I'm no longer in sorrow. I'm no longer going to weep. I have no need to weep. Nor do I fear you, friend. Now, she had changed from a person who you could imagine was in a lot of stress beforehand, because she was named Kisa Gautami because she was lean and haggard. So you can imagine that her childhood wasn't a very nice one. Imagine being called lean. So you can imagine her childhood wasn't a very nice one. She was affected, and you can almost imagine that she was bullied, or she was very self-conscious about her appearance. But throughout her life, she was called Kisa Gautami, and she was unable to find someone to marry until this rich merchant, the merchant's son, married her. And then she had a child, which the child had died. But through all this pain, she couldn't accept that her child was dead. But now, she is no longer in sorrow that her child had died. She's no longer in need. She's no longer in need of men. She no longer will weep. She no longer will be in sorrow. And she's no longer scared of Mara, which she calls even friend. She's no longer scared of death. Now imagine that. Kisa Goswami also met Bhattacharya. And in her Therigata, she also states that she had known Bhattacharya. She got to meet her. But now, after all of this, she's become an Arhat once. No longer affected by anything. Okay. Let's take a few moments to transfer the merits and conclude the sermon. Okay. Let's take a moment to transfer the merits we've all acquired by making offerings to the infinite virtues of the Noble Triple Gem, chanting periods, listening to the Dharma, and engaging in various meritorious deeds today. So first and foremost, let us remind ourselves how incredibly fortunate we are to be in receipt of the Lord Buddha's teaching, and with immense gratitude, let us transfer these merits to the Bhikshu Bhikshuni, Upasakas Upasikas, who since time immemorial have protected and preserved the sublime teaching of the Buddha, and pass it down to the generations of the noble lineage in the form of the Tripitaka, which is thankfully available us to study, to understand, to comprehend the Dharma. Let us also transfer the merits required to all the members of the mahasanga present throughout the world, including the chief prelates of all the chapters who have dedicated their lives to the noble path, and have committed themselves to the betterment of all sentient beings. Let us not forget that among them are the monks and nuns resident in your local temple and nunneries, who have been by your side through thick and thin, come rain or shine. Let us also transfer these merits to Guru Swami Mahanse, to all the monks resident in this monastery, as well as the anagarikas attached to the monastery. Let us also take a moment to transfer these merits and express our gratitude to those who make great efforts to disseminate the teachings of the Buddha. Be that by transliterating these sermons, sharing them out with others, inviting others to join them. May through the power of these merits, if any of them have been born in the woeful plane, may they redeem themselves and be born in the blissful plane. May through the power of the merits, may they abstain from their meritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain supreme bliss Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also transfer the merits required today to the devotees, friends of the monastery who, for sake of merits, continue to sustain the mahasanga. This includes every one of you who have contributed to the construction of the monastery, to those of you who provide the mahasanga with shelter, alms, robes, medicines, as well as those who pass on their know-hows, extended their well wishes. May through the power of these merits, may they abstain from their meritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain supreme bliss Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to our mothers, fathers, husbands and wives, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, nephews, nieces, our elders, friends and acquaintances, employers, employees, and to those who have helped us, supported us, assisted us in any way or form. By the power of the merits, may they be healed of any physical and mental ailments, and overcome the obstacles to their spiritual progress. May they abstain from their meritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain supreme bliss Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to the devas, brahmas, spirits, demons, and primarily to Sakradeva, as well as the numerous gods and deities who have committed to protect and fulfill the Sambuddha Sasana. Let us also transfer merits to our guardian deities who keep a watchful eye over us and keep us out of harm's way. May through the power of the merits, may they prosper in divine power and wisdom. May they abstain from their meritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain supreme bliss Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to our ancestors who predeceased us. To those who have been our family, our friends and acquaintances in this infinitely long journey in samsara, who have helped us, supported us, assisted us in any way they could, let us transfer these merits. Let us also transfer these merits to the members of the armed forces as well as the police force, who have sacrificed their lives to protect the peace and harmony of our nation. May All who have lost their lives in war, be their friend or foe, may they rejoice in the merits required today. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to those who have lost their lives in natural calamities, such as tsunamis, earthquakes, landslides, pandemics, reminding ourselves that among them will be those who have been our family and friends to us in this long journey in samsara. Let us take a moment to transfer these merits to them. May to the power of these merits, if any of them have been born in the woeful plane, may they redeem themselves and be born in the blissful plane. May they abstain from their meritorious deeds, fulfill their meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain supreme nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Finally, let us all resolve, may to the power and blessings all the merits we require today, we bear witness the event of many hundreds and thousands of arhats in this blessed land. And finally, may to the power of all the merits we require today, you and I and everybody who have made this program a success, become an Arhat Nwanse or an Arhat Mahin Nwanse in this very life in the era of the Gautam Supreme Buddha itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May the blessings of the Noble Triple Gem be with you. Okay, we will now conclude the sermon there. May the Noble Triple Gem be with you all forever.